Now, commuters may find this hard to believe, but Victoria Station down there was once home to a train advertised as the most luxurious in the world. Launched in 1933, the Brighton Belle Pullman rivaled the Orient Express for Art Deco splendour and fine dining. But when the service was axed in the 1970s, its plush carriages were auctioned off to become potting sheds, B&Bs, even a chicken coop. But now, after years of searching and restoration, the Brighton Belle will soon be back on the tracks. And Mark Jordan has the story.
Platform 3 for the 16 to...
If the train is your worst part of the day, think again. It wasn't always that way.
Most railway preservation is all about this, the locomotive, and you can see why. But preserve the carriages and you can take people back to a magical age.
Long before private jets and limos, there were Pullman railway carriages. This was VIP travel, with a Liberace thrilling thousands of adoring women, royals off on state visits, or great statesmen making their final journey. Pullman was there to serve. It was the electric Brighton Belle that was perhaps most famous. Born in the age of Art Deco and Poirot, it survived right up until 1972.
Leaving Victoria Station for the last time, one of the most famous trains in the world. It was a nostalgic affair to see the old lady go, a sad parting for many famous people. This is about the last time you'll see people dancing on a station platform.
The party was over. The world had moved on. Many carriages were left to rot, time capsules of a bygone age. A railway preservation group dared to wonder, could the Brighton Belle ever live again?
This is the first-class car, Hazel. This train was Brighton. It was glamour. It was beautiful. It was fast. It was reliable. And it had the right kind of people on board. The 11 o'clock train from Victoria towards Brighton. And this mass of acting royalty. The stewards knew precisely what they drank, what they wanted to eat.
Brighton Belle regular Sir Laurence Olivier successfully campaigned to keep kippers on the menu.
I'm very happy that the Brighton Belle will continue to be one of the fine trains of the world.
43 years on, how many of those party carriages still even exist?
We had 2, and we had somehow to find another 3. And that took us 4 years of really hard work.
While most of these magnificent carriages rotted and festered, a few made a great escape to the most famous train on Earth.
Carriages Vera, Audrey and Gwyn were restored for the Venice Simplon Orient Express. Today, a half-day trip with fine dining costs around £400 each.
The carriage is very famous as well. It's part of the old Brighton Belle. It's probably got the most loveliest marquetry panels on the whole train. Part of its history had the roof blown off by the Luftwaffe at Victoria Station.
They own another 3 Belle carriages awaiting refurbishment.
Coming into the coupe, which is all still original, as it would have been back in the day.
With their own skilled restoration team, these owners weren't going to sell.
A lot of people would love to get their hands on these carriages, but we love what we're doing here and we would never see it being different to that.
They're staying where they are?
Yeah, definitely.
Only 9 other Brighton Belle carriages ever existed, auctioned off 43 years ago. So where were they now? One was uncovered as a B&B in Derbyshire, but the owners flatly refused to sell. Then, a bit of luck.
One of our cars was put on eBay for £25,000, and happily, no one made a bid.
Then came a carriage dragged from a siding in Norfolk. Next, reports of a restaurant car attached to a Yorkshire village pub.
They wanted an absolute arm and a leg. After 2 extremely difficult years of negotiation, we persuaded the owners of the Black Bull pub at Moulton to give us the restaurant that they'd so lovingly looked after since 1972. and that required two humongously large cranes. The important thing is it didn't demolish the pub. If it did, we'd have ended up with no pub and no Hazel first-class car.
After decades apart, 6 cars of the Brighton Belle are now back together here at Chesterfield's Barrow Hill Rail Centre.
This is where trains come in pretty rough state and they're reborn.
Total restoration costs will be £5 million. Some coaches arrived barely recognisable. Others revealed shrapnel from when the Luftwaffe bombed Victoria.
So there we are, 70 years on, we're repairing war damage.
The TLC here is normally lavished on old locomotives, but back in 1933, the Brighton Belle was a revolutionary new electric train.
We stand here beside the evidence of progress.
An electric wonder, hailed by the great and the good.
This was designed to run at 75 miles an hour, and it didn't run very well at that. Today, because of the congestion, it has to be able to run at 95 miles an hour, and of course passengers expect a much smoother ride. So that's a challenge in itself.
For its return to the main line in autumn, every single weld has to be inspected and certified. The seats have had to be widened for a fatter Britain. And then there's the panelling.
Here we go, Lee.
Destroyed by years of rain. Now veneers are matched, frames sanded, and the Belle glued back together.
So the boys from Health and Safety said this has got to be fire retardant.
It's taken a lot of research, and it's up to half an hour fireproof. It's absolutely amazing.
With the train running by this autumn, the team plan to sell half-day excursions for around £200, half the price of its old rival, the Orient Express.
In fact, we've had offers from retired drivers to drive this again.
My final stop is Worthing, to meet the very last person to drive the Belle. He remembers how crew relished throttling up and throwing around its posh customers.
Some of them used to come up before you left and say, don't spill my coffee and things like that. If you shut off and then got halfway across the junction and open it up again, the whole back used to vibrate and roll and rock. And we used to do it for pleasure.
The 83-year-old Brighton Belle will be smoother when she returns, and a younger man eagerly awaits.
I'd like to have another go on it. 78 years old wouldn't be bad, would it?
That's it for the current series of